Hello and welcome to Mindscast 445. This is part 2 of our simple Laravel book example. So in the first video we created the application, seeded the database, and created an index page. To start us off this time, we are going to use again the Artisan command line interface and the web server that comes with that. Notice that will start up on localhost 8000. So I'll bring this up in the web page, and just to refresh our memories, what we have is a very simple application with books, and each book has just a title and an author. Our application will ultimately include create, read, update, and delete, otherwise affectionately known as CRUD. And we're going to start with create. You may recall from the last video that add a new book has a URL of books/create, and if I press it now, we see that we have an error, and that's not surprising. It's not found HTTP exception. And if you recall the routes we created last time, we did not add a route for book/create. And just to verify that's what it's looking for, we can scroll down a bit. Notice the request URI is book/create, and the request method is get. So this is what our route file currently looks like, and we have simply methods for getting the index with two different names. I've already coded up the route we need at this point, so let me just copy that in here. And what we'll see is that for books that create, we have a get verb. What we need to do is create a new book so that we have space to fill in. And then we're going to create a view. Notice we have a different view. We haven't created this yet. We'll need to do that before we try to run this, books/edit. And within book/edit, we'll have this new book that we've created. And we're going to allocate a method of post. That's what will be happening when we hit the submit button. I like to work in small steps, so the first thing we're going to do in our edit file is simply display a static header. And you may recall from last time that we have in our template a section for header and also a section for content. So let's return to our browser, hit refresh, and good, we did get to the page we just created. So now that we know that the route works, let's update the view to accept data. And I've already filled this in. Laravel makes it very easy to populate a form based on a model. Notice here we've got form model, and anytime we use that we also have to use a form close. What this does is it sets up an array with the method that we pass in and a URL. This is what's going to happen when we hit submit. The important thing in terms of connecting to the data is, notice we have title and author. Those are our two fields from the database, and those will get filled in automatically as long as we ensure that the names match the names from the database. Laravel also has functionality to repopulate fields in case of a validation error, but that's beyond our current scope. So now we refresh our page, and here's our information and our option to enter some fields. And I press save. And once again we have an error. This is a method not allowed exception. And scrolling down we see that the request URI is books and the request method is post. And of course we have not put in a route for that yet. So I have filled in a route here. Remember that we need the verb post. The URI was books. What we're going to do is use the eloquent book create command with input all. You may recall from video 1 that we established a fillable array that included title and author, so those fields will get populated into the database. And when we're done, we redirect to books/bookid with a message that indicates success. So let's return to our browser, press refresh. Remember with the post, you've all seen this, resend, I'm sure. And, well, we have an error, but this is a different error. This is, again, a not found HTTP exception. And if we scroll down, we see that what we're missing is books with a book ID and the get method. So we did not add that particular route yet. So these routes can get a bit confusing, and I've created a diagram to help us out. Remember that we started with a URL, and this set up a books variable using the book all from Eloquent. This called the books index view, listed all the books, and then when we clicked add, that used the get method and a books/create URL, took us to books edit where we entered some fields. We clicked save. At that point, the method was post based on the submit button, and the URL was books with the ID. We went to book create, which is Eloquent's way of adding data to the database. And now we have to redirect somewhere. Where do we want to go? Well, we need another view called books single, and that's going to allow us to just view an individual book. So first we're going to create the route. Notice this will be, again, a get method with books / and then the ID of a book. We pass that ID into a function which allows us to do book find. It's another Eloquent command. And here's where we're going to make the new view that we need, book single, passing in the book variable. So in the single view, we put the title of the book up in the header. We put the data related to the book, in this case just one field, the author, down in the body or the content section. Then we've also got the ability to edit or delete that particular book. So let's return now to the browser, hit refresh, and there we are. That's our single view. So at this point I could press edit or delete, but we know that we haven't added those routes yet, and I'm getting a bit tired of the error messages. So let's go back and think about what we need for those routes. So from the single book view, we have two options. We might click edit or delete. In either case, the URL is books with the ID and then either edit or delete appended to the end. And in both cases, it's a method get. We then go to the books edit, and what happens depends on which method we're doing. If we are editing the book, then what we have is a field where we can update the title and or author. And then if we click save at that point, what we get is a URL which is books with the ID. And the method technically should be put based on a RESTful architecture, but most HTML forms do not support put. So we have a method of post, and Laravel uses a hidden method, underscore method, with the put command. What this should cause to happen is we should update the book, and then we'll simply redirect back to books with that ID and the get method, and that really just displays that same books single page again. Now on the delete side, when we go to books.edit, what we want is just a confirmation that we do want to delete the book. And assuming we say yes, then again, for the same reason, we have a method of post, and the underscored method is delete. And at that point, we cannot go back to books single because, of course, the book has been deleted. So instead, we just return to the index. So for all that to happen, we need to update both the edit view and the routes. And we're going to start with the edit view. Notice here under the heading, instead of simply adding a book, we're going to check the method and either say add a book, edit the book, or delete the book. Then down in the content, we've got this @unless method is delete. So the fields, the title and author, will only be displayed if we are adding or editing a book. If it's delete, what we're going to do down here is have a submit button that says delete. Otherwise, for adding or editing, we will have a form submit, which will say save. And the rest of the form stays the same as before. So now we want to think again about the routes, and remember that we had the option to press edit or delete, and those created different URLs with books, the book ID, and either edit or delete in the URI. In either case, what we wanted to do was go to the books edit view, and notice we've got method put for the edit and method delete for the delete. We've also got two routes that come out of the books edit view, and this is going to be if we hit save when we're editing or confirm when we're doing a delete. And notice that here's where we call book update or book delete, and here's where we've got the redirect either back to the books with the book ID or to the index if we're hitting delete. So there's one more thing to consider when we add these routes to our routes file, which is that the put and delete are really post methods with just that extra underscore method field that Laravel adds. And so it's important that we put those in the routes file above the other post routes so that Laravel can find these and not the regular post. And so I've put these, notice here's route model, that's at the top of the file. So I've added these new routes right at the top of my file. So now we'll return to the browser and see if we can actually do this. And indeed, here's editing. We can update the author, hit save. Yes, that goes back to the single view. And let's test the delete. Yes, we do want to delete. And there we are, successfully deleted book. So there's just one more thing to show, which is from the index page. If I click on a book title, what I get is to the book's single page with the URL books/ID. And here from the browser, I can click on a title, and indeed that's what happens. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching.